So I'm delighted to be joined by Chris Billam Smith. I must say, Chris, like in previous press conferences I've spoken to you, and it's been kind of, when is this title shot coming? When is this title shot coming? But how good is it for you to now finally say that it's all set in stone?
Yeah. It's great to obviously have the press conference and the whole day on Tuesday and get it all announced and signed and sorted. So yeah, I'm over the moon.
Yeah. And obviously it's Lawrence Okolie that you'll be facing. Kind of how did that come about? And was it related to that kind of that tweet from Lawrence that was kind of fired out?
Um, we had a few options. Obviously, Jai was getting spoke about quite a lot in my fights last year with Isaac Chamberlain and then Joe Jai. Then obviously he had some management issues and a mandatory, so he wasn't going to be able for this date, and we had this date set. Then we tried Gulamirian, been going back and forth with his team, but all the time Lawrence was obviously having his own stuff going on, and then had a mandatory. So yeah, didn't really think it was an option. And then went just before his fight with David Light, Gulamirian's team, and they were going back and forth, and it didn't look like it was going to materialize. So we went to we said to them on the phone, to Boxer on the phone, we said, what about Lawrence? Would he come back in 9 weeks? He'll blow this guy away in a few rounds, and then he might be ready to go again in 9 weeks. So yeah, and then obviously he then said he's willing to fight. So it's been perfect.
Yeah. So obviously there was a lot of respect on stage between you both at the press conference, and obviously sometimes that's not there in boxing. But is it almost weird to kind of be in there with Lawrence in a competitive scenario?
Yeah, I guess so in a way. I guess we're always competing in the gym in the sense of sparring and stuff, but not, it's not proper competition. But yeah, it's gonna, it was a bit strange at first when it all got sort of sorted. But yeah, now it's just another opponent really. You've got someone I want.
Yeah. And obviously, for the kind of purpose of this interview, I know you've kind of asked it before, but how big of an advantage do you see having Shane in your corner, given his relationship with Lawrence?
Yeah, huge advantage having Shane in my corner for any fight, not just for Lawrence, for any fight. I believe Shane's the best coach in the world. So um, just having him around on fight week and during camp, you just constantly learning. And I think all his fighters can attribute to that. And yes, it's a huge advantage, and the fact that he knows Lawrence very very well is a huge advantage as well.
Yeah. So obviously, you said you've kind of been in there and had some sparring rounds with Lawrence. From what you can remember of sparring sessions and what you know, does that give you kind of extra confidence going into the fight?
Yeah. I'm very very confident going into this fight. Obviously, mainly because I think of how much I've developed as a fighter since he's left the gym as well. So he doesn't know what to expect. He can look at the last two fights, but they don't really tell half the story, to be honest, for various reasons. So, yeah, it's and it excites me to be able to show everyone and Lawrence how much I've improved.
Yeah. And just one on obviously Lawrence last time out, obviously there was a bit of criticism, perhaps probably unfair to be fair, half of it. But do you think now being in there with you, it's going to be kind of, we've seen your fights, they're kind of all action, the fans love it. Do you think that's going to kind of bring the best out of each other?
Yeah, I think Lawrence hasn't got a choice but to be entertaining in this fight. For Because of the last fight, he can't go out. He's had to, he's sort of had to take this fight because he gets the headline again, and he might not have been able to headline even though he's a world champion because of the backlash of the last fight. And I've see a few people even talking about it in this fight. Um, but I'm always in entertaining fights, and I'll be making sure I stay that way, and entertain the fans as always. And I know ways as well to not let Lawrence negate. So if he does try all that stuff, I know ways not to let him do that. So it's yeah, it's it'd be different from his last fight for sure.
Yeah. And obviously, you've spoken kind of at the start about difficulty getting in kind of that position to fight other champions. Not to overlook Lawrence, but do you feel like if you did get your hands on the belt, it might make it a bit easier to make these unification fights and kind of thrust your way into these big fights?
Yeah, for sure. And I think now, for me, once we fight at the stadium, win a world title, then I'm sort of the ticket seller in the country, which I've proven at cruiserweight. So obviously, I think Opataya might do good tickets out in and be a fairly big name out in Australia. But at the same time, it's not going to be as big a platform as Sky Sports is over here and worldwide. So yeah, there's going to be huge amounts of opportunities.
Yeah. And just last couple from me. Thank you, Chris, for your time. Obviously Riakporhe's that kind of triangle between yourselves that Boxer have had to kind of resolve. Was he ever an option for yourself for that rematch, or was that not on the table?
Yeah, well, he got offered the rematch for December and didn't take it. Said he'd never fight me in Bournemouth. Um, he was in part of the contract to fight potentially on this date, but we wanted to get a world title. It made sense for everyone, and obviously with it being in Bournemouth, who knows what if he would have taken the fight or not. So for us, it was important to get a world title shot. We went through, all the champions or the ones that we knew that would, weren't just holding belts. For example, Badou Jack's just out. He said he just wants a big payday out in Saudi, and which is fair enough. He's earned his stripes in the sport. So we targeted the other three, and obviously managed to get one. But yeah, if Lawrence didn't accept, I probably would have ended up we would have ended up offering it to Richard, and who knows whether he would have taken it or not without a world title being on the line.
Yeah. And just kind of a last one from me. Obviously, boxing's been going through a bit of a rough patch. We've seen kind of a few fights collapsing, like your Fury Usyk. How proud does it make to, like for you to be part of one of these big fights and not obviously see anything collapse at the last minute?
Yeah, obviously there's been a lot of negatives in the sport, but this for me is a huge positive. My career as a whole has been very positive with with the way it's gone. We had a rematch, Tommy McCarthy. Then we had the Isaac Chamberlain fight. So it's been a pretty positive. So it's nice to bring some positives to the sport, and I think me and Lawrence do that by having this fight. I think two friends, two old stablemates, fighting for a world title. For him, it's like I said earlier, it's an opportunity for him to get get back and try and look good, doing trying to defend his world title. But for me, it's an opportunity to fulfill my dream, which is to win a world title at the Vitality Stadium.
Yeah. And obviously, just to finish up, you mentioned the Vitality Stadium. Obviously, like coming down for myself, it's probably going to be a raucous atmosphere. Like it's going to be great to see. And obviously, you get your big stadium fight that you want. What's your little message for fans before this big fight?
They don't need a message. They just need a thank you from me. To be honest, they always turn out in their thousands, and they make plenty of noise. So just continue being you, and are hugely grateful and thank you to them.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, Ben.